Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked where I climb the online Series 2 VGC ladder in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and provide live commentary as I go. In this video, I'll be trying out the best ranking Iron TREADS team from the Vancouver Regional Championships, which took place in the middle of March. This team finished in the top 32 of that tournament, and in fact, it's the only Iron TREADS team to make it to Day 2 for the Masters Division out of all of the majors so far that have happened in the Series 2 format. It was built by a player called Matt, and Matt built Iron TREADS with a booster energy to give it a speed boost, and some valuable speed control via moves like Bulldoze as well as Rock Tomb. The Iron TREADS in particular synergizes really nicely with Dragon Dance Gyarados as well as Specs Hydreigon, both which are immune to your own Bulldoze. To round out the team, you've got Armarouge, Amoonguss, and Iron Hands for a Trick Room-oriented component of the team. As always, I'll do a quick breakdown of the team before getting into the battles, but if you want to just skip to the games, check out the timestamps down below. And thank you so much as always for watching. If you enjoy, I'd really appreciate it if you consider leaving a like in the video or subscribing to the channel. It really helps out a ton. Anyway, let's dive into things. Getting into the team now, first of all, once again, a huge thank you to Matt for building and sharing this team. I've linked his Twitter down in the description below, as well as a rental and a paste, and congratulations to him for finishing in the top 32 at Vancouver Regionals. Question of the day, with us using Iron TREADS, I'm just curious what your favorite Paradox Pokemon overall is down in the comments section below. Now, when talking about Iron TREADS, I think the first thing to highlight is that this Pokemon has pretty good stats, right? Base 112 attack, base 120 defense, which is really nice, and then base 106 speed. It's got a decent speed, and with the booster energy, you essentially will outpace everything that doesn't already have a choice scar for a booster energy on the opposing side. And so it's really nice because you can deal pretty good damage with Earthquake. I think ground type attacks in general are just really valuable in Series 2, where a lot of teams just don't really have great ground resistances or immunities. I really like using Assault Vest, Ground Terra, Excalibur for that reason. TREADS fulfills a similar role in terms of just doing a lot of damage with Earthquake across the board. And so it synergizes really nicely with Gyarados and Hydreigon. The idea is that Iron TREADS can bulldoze while Gyarados and Hydreigon are out on the field. These Pokemon aren't affected by it, nor are they affected by Earthquake, and you can drop your opponent's speed, which is really nice for a unique means of speed control. This is a Dragon Dance Gyarados set, and Gyarados in particular is really nice in the format, and I think kind of underrated because Great Tusk is one of the most common Pokemon. There are also other physical attackers such as Talonflame and Tyranitar, for example, but the general idea is that Gyarados can switch into a Great Tusk, completely wall the Tusk, kind of force it to switch out, and Dragon Dance while the Tusk is kind of in an awkward position. In addition, you have Lumberry here to get around Will-O-Wisp and Spore, both which are pretty common. After a single Dragon Dance, Gyarados can deal so much damage with a combination of Waterfall as well as Terra Blast. Specs Hydreigon is a set that was very common in the beginning of Scarlet and Violet. Hydreigon, I feel like, has definitely fallen off in terms of usage, and that's because in Series 2, you have so many Paradox Pokemon like Fluttermane and Iron Hands, which can match up well against the Hydreigon. But with Ghost Terra here, and with speed control from TREADS, the Hydreigon, I think, has a little bit more value. Ghost Terra gets around that fighting weakness and turns it into an immunity, and with this, you can also get around, like, taking super effective damage from flying type, or fairy type attacks, I should say. You also have Snarl here, which is really nice into, like, Entity plus Armarouge. Base 125 Choice Spec Snarl honestly does a huge amount of damage, and so it's a little bit more situational, but in specific situations, this thing can not only disrupt your opponent, but also deal massive amounts of damage. So TREADS synergizes really nicely with Gyarados and Hydreigon. The thing about TREADS is that it's often not going to be able to, like, pick up one-hit knockouts, but that's fine, because you're fairly bulky, just thanks to your natural stats, as well as Intimidate from Gyarados. So TREADS, Gyarados, TREADS plus the Hydreigon, both are really solid leads. To round out the team, you've got Iron Hands, Armarouge, and Amoonguss. These are all fairly standard. The Hands here has a little bit of speed investment to try to speed creep opposing Iron Hands and maybe can Gambit as well. And the main idea is that you can use it for good damage support, but you can also Volt Switch to pivot it out. That allows you to lead something like Hands, Armarouge, and just Volt Switch, set up Trick Room, and then go from there, for example. This is also a really effective Pokemon in just cleaning up a lot of games. The Amoonguss here is pretty standard, but the one thing to call out is that it doesn't have Protect. Instead, you've got Clear Smog to give you a better Dondozo matchup. So against Dondozos, a lot of times you'll want to try to position in a way where you can get that Clear Smog off against them. Otherwise, Water Terra, Citrus Berry to kind of survive for as long as possible. One other thing to call out here is that Pollen Puff on this Amoonguss is really nice because this team is just generally pretty bulky. So there'll be a lot of situations where you can soak up some damage with your Pokemon. Like, you know, Iron TREADS and Hydreigon are the frailest options on this team, and even then they can take some hits, and Amoonguss can just continuously heal them back with Pollen Puff, which is really nice. This in particular synergizes really nicely with the Dragon Dance Gyarados. The final option here is Grass Terra Armarouge, and this is also fairly standard. The one thing to note is that it has a little bit more special defense investment than some people are used to. Often people just max HP and special attack, but special defense helps out against special attackers such as Bundle, for example, as well as Fluttermane. And Energy Ball plus Grass Terra is a really nice combo combo in particular. Sometimes you'll see things like Wide Guard or Protect over the Energy Ball, but on this team, Gyarados is such a pivotal Pokemon, and Gyarados really doesn't love going up against bulky Water-type Pokemon, especially something like Gastrodon, for example, and so the Energy Ball kind of solves for those bulky Waters, which is pretty cool. So there are a lot of different ways you can approach the team. I think one is going with TREADS in the early game with Gyarados and Hydreigon, and then one of like Hands, Armarouge, or Amoonguss in the back. You could also go a Trick Room route with Amoonguss, Armarouge lead, Iron Hands, Armarouge lead, Amoonguss or Iron Hands in the back, and then clean up the game with one of TREADS, Gyarados, Hydreigon. You can go with an early Trick Room mode with just like Amoonguss, Armarouge, Iron Hands, Armarouge, and then have like 2 of the 3 kind of slightly faster Pokemon in the back as well. So yeah, that's it for a quick breakdown. Let's quickly highlight some weaknesses. I think the first thing I note here is that Iron TREADS just doesn't really have a great base special defense stat to begin with, and so you can use strong special attackers, especially ones that can hit TREADS for super effective, like fire type attacks and ground type attacks, to deal massive amounts of damage to it, especially if you have a defensive Terra on your side. One other thing to note about the TREADS here is that it does not have Protect, which you can take advantage of. Another thing about playing against this Pokemon is if you can kind of make sure that it doesn't get that much value out of the immediate speed boost, force it to switch out, then come back out, obviously afterwards, then there are a fair amount of Pokemon in the format that do indeed outspeed TREADS, such as Fluttermane and Bundle, for example. But yeah, generally special attacks can be pretty valuable, especially if you are able to use those that hit it for super effective, even if it just turns Terra Steel, for example. So that's one thing to note. I think Gyarados in particular has Flying Terra, but that means that you're still weak to electric type attacks, right, even after the Terra, and that can be pretty scary. Opposing Iron Hands in general is a Pokemon I always get a little bit wary of when I use the Gyarados, and that can be pretty scary. With Amoonguss, obviously, having safety goggles in general can be really valuable. Grass Terras can always be valuable against this Pokemon as well, and so that's one thing to watch out for. And I guess against TREADS, like Intimidate and Flying type Pokemon in general are also just pretty strong, right? And one other interesting thing is that a lot of the, or both of the ground type attacks are spread moves. So if you have Wide Guard, you can deny both Earthquake and Bulldoze, which can make it a little bit trickier for this team in particular, right? And then, yeah, as I generally say, like taking advantage of the lack of Protect on Pokemon can be in your favor. So no Protect on TREADS, no Protect on Armarouge. Even just knowing it's Grass Terra plus Energy Ball can give you a pretty big advantage, because one of the things that this team likes to do is catch people off guard with this combo. But if you anticipate Energy Ball and just don't lose your, bulky water type Pokemon to it immediately, that in itself can completely swing a game. And so keep that in mind if you do have any bulky water types, whether it be things like Palafin or Gastron, for example. And then the Hydreigon here, Ghost Terra is interesting, right? Because it gives you an immunity to fighting, but against Fluttermane, for example, then Shadow Ball becomes super effective against this, and so that's something you can leverage to your advantage. So yeah, those are just a couple of things. I think the main thing with TREADS is that it can be really good if you lead with it properly, but sometimes it gets stuck in these situations where it feels like it's not contributing much damage, but I also don't really want to switch because I don't want to get rid of that booster energy speed boost, and then it can be really tricky from the from the Iron TREADS perspective. So yeah, anyway, that's it for a breakdown. Let's get into these battles. All right, what? It's an Iron TREADS battle here, but they have Tyranitar, Colossal, Orthworm, Glamour, and Amoonguss. Does Tyranitar still get Surf? Is that what's happening? I actually really have no idea what to expect here. Okay, so I think our TREADS is obviously pretty decent, but I very much have to worry about Orthworm. To which we can Armor Cannon it. Man, what an interesting team. How good is Intimidate for me? Like, especially with Lumberry, one approach we could take is just like Dragon Dancing early with Gyarados. Hands is also pretty good into a lot of my opponent's team. I think I want... I'm mainly debating if I should bring Armarouge or not, because Armor Cannon is obviously quite good into Orthworm. But I'm honestly thinking of like a Gyarados plus Iron TREADS lead with Hands and Hydreigon on the back. This is such an interesting battle. Man, they have TREADS, Colossal, and Orthworm. A lot of interesting stuff on their side. The general idea behind using our TREADS is we can use it for speed control with the Bulldoze and the Rock Tomb. Gyarados can start setting up a Dragon Dance immediately. Also gives us a quick Intimidate onto their side of the field, which is pretty nice. So let's see, what's the lead? It's going to be Iron TREADS and Tyranitar. Okay. Generally, I'd argue this is really good for us. So we get Intimidate first. They're not Choice Scarf Tyranitar. They are also Booster Energy. Okay. Interesting. Very interesting. So the Intimidate obviously helps a lot here. I'm honestly thinking of clicking Dragon Dance into Bulldoze on turn 1. The idea is that, like, maybe I could see them switching out Tyranitar right now. Bulldoze gives me really good speed control, and Gyarados just gets decently set up. It's a little bit risky, because, like, they might just click Rock Slide anyway right now against us, but I don't know. Like, Tyranitar's at -1. It's facing super effective damage from both Gyarados and TREADS. I think I could have contemplated, like, a double Protect here to scout out for a Terra or a Switch, but I think the reality is I'm actually applying pretty good pressure relative to my opponent right now, so they are going to commit a Terra. I think flying Terra T-Tar here immediately makes sense to me. Psychic. Okay. TREADS just protects. I am so interested in how this is going to play out. Psychic Terra Tyranitar. I can't remember the last time I've seen that. Okay, we get Bulldoze off. Gyarados Dragon Dances as well. I mean, Gyarados is looking pretty strong going into this next turn, right? And they just low kick. Okay. That's not a bad outcome at all, in my opinion. Low kick Psychic. Fascinating. Psychic makes sense, by the way, for resistance for fighting. I've just never really seen it before, which I think is pretty cool. I think I'm down to just Waterfall and Earthquake here, honestly. Yeah, they end up Earthquaking as well. Okay. Does that KO us at -1 is the question. It doesn't. Nice. That's huge. Although Bulldoze would have ended up being better here for that speed control. That's so much damage on their TREADS, though. Nice. We get Waterfall off. Beautiful. So far, so good, right? Like, we got them to commit their Terra. They didn't really get that much value out of it at all. And I still have this Intimidate onto their TREADS as well. Although I think this last turn could have been a little bit better for me if I clicked Bulldoze. My main fear was that their TREADS was actually going to get the knockout onto mine. Well, I guess Gyarados was clicking Waterfall there anyway, so even with that fear, yeah, I think Bulldoze was slightly more optimal in that position, because then it gives me better speed control. But that's fine. They bring out Earthworm, which I have plenty of answers for in the back, especially, you know, close combat from this. The TREADS we're using here can't actually protect, but it's fine. I feel like it's done its job more or less. I'm honestly happy to Waterfall into Earthworm. Like, the main thing is I could see TREADS protecting here as Earthworm goes for Shed Tail. So I think Waterfall here is fine. Oh, I guess awkwardly, like, what do I do here? Rock Tomb TREADS. Actually, no, it's fine to click Earthquake first. And they just end up Earthquaking. Okay, works for me. Like, I think the reality is that our Gyarados walls their TREADS pretty well, right? So, like, my opponent basically, like, feels like they committed their Terra and played in a way just to beat my TREADS, but I still have a +1 Gyarados, I still have my Terra, and I still have Iron Hands plus Hydreigon waiting in the back. Waterfall does a little less than I would have liked, though, and it's Iron Defense. Okay, Iron Defense is fine. We just bring out Choice Specs Hydreigon now, and we can Dark Pulse them pretty easily. Yeah. That is why it was important to bring it, although, I don't know, maybe Armourouge would have been slightly better. If it's Iron Defense, it's probably also running Body Press, right? TREADS can heal back the Earthworm with an Earthquake, which is kind of interesting. I'm down to Waterfall into TREADS right now. I think I'm going to defensively Terra here immediately, and then just go for Dark Pulse onto Earthworm. And the main reason for that is because I just really don't want to lose Hydreigon to a Body Press here immediately, right? Like, yeah, if the TREADS goes for an Earthquake, now I no longer... Oh, sorry, I still have Levitate. Never mind. Yeah, so we're still fine. I feel like after using Iron Jugulus, I've been used to, like, being like, oh, now I'm weak to ground type attacks. But with Levitate, we're totally chilling. So they just Iron Head. That's fine. If we don't flinch here, this should just be a double KO, I would think. Unless it's like super specially defensive Orthworm, which could be the case. You do flinch. But they body press, yeah. That's why we Ghost Terra to cover for that. It is a little frustrating, though, because I think if we get that Dark Pulse off, it should just win us the game. I'm curious whether or not I would have one-shot Orthworm from the range that I was at. But Colossal is their last one, so yeah, it's not really going to help my opponent very much here. I'm happy to just Water, fall into that, and then Dark Pulse into Orthworm. Does Orthworm get, like, Aqua Jet? I have no idea. Yeah, they just Protect. So Protect, Body Press, Iron Defense makes sense, but Waterfall just KOs Colossal here, no? Can't Terra that defensively, and that's a KO. Nice. Yeah, so, like, the TREADS is so nice on this team because it synergizes so nicely with Hydreigon and Gyarados. I didn't really utilize Bulldoze in this one. I think that was like the main thing I could have done the turn I clicked Earthquake with it. But, you know, put on a lot of offensive pressure immediately. Intimidate supports it really nicely. And yeah, Hydreigon really critical to hit from the special side here. I think I could have brought Armrouge over Hydreigon as well, potentially in this matchup. But yeah, definitely did not expect to go up against an opposing Iron TREADS. I'm still kind of curious what the Colossal on the opposing side synergizes with on their team. And then Psychic Terra on Tyranitar I thought was also pretty interesting. Haven't really seen that before. Wonder if it has Terra Blast then as a result as well. That would allow you to hit like Iron Hands for super effective damage, which is pretty interesting. So I expect it to have Terra Blast, but yeah. Ultimately, Gyarados plus TREADS ended up being a really solid lead into their end. We got an Intimidate off, got a Dragon Dance off, did a lot of damage with Gyarados, and TREADS was also able to put on a lot of pressure from the early turns. And it felt like my opponent basically used a ton of resources just to respond to TREADS, which isn't really like the primary offensive carry with this team. And then we were able to just position Hydreigon in and yeah, put in a lot of work. And I think late game Iron Hands was also really good against a lot of what they had as well. So yeah. All right, we've got a very interesting team here. Screamtail, Iron Hands, Tusk, and Brute Bonnet with Torkoal and Hatterene. So, you know, it's pretty clearly like Trick Room-oriented team. You can go Fake Out with Iron Hands plus Hatterene, Iron Hands Hatterene, Iron Hands Screamtail, Brute Bonnet Screamtail, Brute Bonnet Hatterene. Those are all really viable leads in my opinion. Man, Armor is just pretty interesting here because like we can actually Covert Cloak to ignore their Fake Out. They don't have great ground resistances or immunities. Like TREADS is tempting, but I think it's a little bit risky because they can obviously just lead with something like Hands plus. I don't know, but if you go Hands Screamtail, like I do think I should lead Armrouge here, especially with Covert Cloak. All of our Pokemon are pretty solid here. Like Gyarados with Flying Terra can put in a ton of work. Amoonguss feels decent as well. I probably don't bring Hydreigon given the dual fairies. I think we drop that for sure, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna try Armrouge, TREADS, Gyarados. I kind of want to go with... Amoonguss is really good with Pollen Puff and Spore and Water Terra. Okay. Yeah, I think the thing about Amoonguss is I can actually play with Amoonguss and Gyarados and essentially like Rage Powder, Dragon Dance, Pollen Puff, Dragon Dance, and use Amoonguss to protect Gyarados a lot. This is kind of an unconventional mode I'm going with, I feel like. I feel like Hands naturally fits really well into the team that we're going up against, but I want to try something different. And I think TREADS is still interesting here. Very interesting, huh? Man, I don't know what to think about this at all. I have such little experience going up against Tusk plus Flutter. Not Flutter. Screamtail. Huh. One approach is turn 1 switching Gyarados, Intimidate, and then Iron Head. They could just go like for Earthquake, could Ground Terra. Gyarados is a relatively free switch in. I could also reverse Trick Room here with Armrouge. I don't think I want to commit a Terra yet, so I think switching into Gyarados and then going for Iron Head here onto Screamtail feels okay. And if they set up Trick Room, then I can utilize Amoonguss and start putting things to sleep, right? So, I think it's okay. Yeah, this is just such an interesting lead. It's not what I anticipated at all. I thought they would certainly go with, like, Hands or Brute Bonnet. They're going to Terra here immediately, which honestly I'm okay with. I think getting an early Terra out from their end is great news for us. Scream Tail's the one going for Terra. It's going to Terra Grass, which is fine. Now you're weak to Armor Cannon as well as Terra Blast from my end. And it's not like Iron Head was going to KO them anyway, honestly. Okay, Tusk protects. That's fine. Also, TREADS is so much smaller than Tusk. It honestly looks so funny to me. Yeah, so they end up Trick Rooming. Which is fine. Like, Armors can reverse Trick Room. I can use Amoonguss to Spore. I really don't think it's too bad for us. Curious about the moveset on this in general, I would say. So, right now, I think, like, with TREADS and Gyarados, we could pretty easily Waterfall into this slot. And Earthquake. I'm okay with that. Yep, so they switch. But Earthquake plus Waterfall covers most things that they could bring out right now. Yeah, it's Hands. It's fine with me. Ah, but you do have Encore. Okay. Makes sense. My main question now is whether or not it's Safety Goggles on the Hands. Because if not, I can just Spore that slot with my Amoonguss pretty easily, which is pretty good. Okay. Encore is scary, but it's fine. I'm actually still going to protect even though I know they have Encore and then bring out Amoonguss right now. Like, the reality is that my opponent had to commit their Terra turn 1 just to get Trick Room up. Scream Tail also just doesn't do that much. I think the big question really will be, do you have Safety Goggles on the Hands? Because I think we want to conserve Gyarados. Gyarados is really good post Trick Room into both the Flutter Mane as well as the Great Tusk in the back. This might be Torkoal coming out. Nope, they bring their Tusk back out. Okay, works for me. Moongus right now is really well positioned going into the next turn. And that's why he brought it into this matchup. Gyarados protects. Could be a Belly Drum here, I was thinking about that. Or a Sword Stance. But they just end up Wild Charging. Perfect. Okay, that's a good turn for us. 2 turns of Trick Room left. I think I'm willing to switch TREADS in. TREADS isn't that important for me at this current point in the game. And I'm down to click Spore onto Hands. I want to confirm whether or not it has Safety Goggles, basically. Hands could also switch out into the Scream Tail, but that's okay. Essentially, what I'm doing right now is playing a little bit passively in the early game to try to stall out Trick Room, and then we'll go from there. And then we still haven't used Armouge, by the way, right? And Armouge is really good into a lot of my opponent's team. Nice switch by my opponent here. That's probably Scream Tail coming back out. Oh, it's actually Hatterene. Okay. Double switch to basically get around Amoonguss, which is really smart. But what that confirms to me is it's not Safety Goggles on Iron Hands, which in itself is actually really valuable information. Yeah. This is fine. So I get TREADS out now. This is honestly a fascinating game so far. So Magic Bounce, but since we're grass, it's fine. Like, I haven't actually even taken any damage yet. That's kind of wild to think about. Iron Head into Hatterene here. I do want to kind of switch out into Armouge right now. Because we should survive the turn with it anyway. And then it pressures Armor Cannon next turn, which is really sweet. Yeah, whereas I think conserving Gyarados for Intimidate is a little bit more valuable. But basically what this shows me is that Amoonguss is really good into my opponent's team after we eliminate one of these 2 Pokemon. Because then Spore is so good into Tusk plus Hands. I think it's interesting, though, because I think I could have just turned 1 gone for, like, Grass Terra Armouge defensively and then reversed their Trick Room immediately, and that would have been really good for me. This might be a Mystical Fire into TREADS right now. Let's see. Oh, it's actually Psychic. Okay, that works. Yeah, that does nothing. Nice. And TREADS gets Iron Heads off. That is so much damage. Oh my gosh. Nice. Okay, pretty cool. So from Scream Tail, what have we seen? Trick Room, Encore, Helping Hand. It could be Disable, could be another attack. I don't know if Armor Cannon is a knockout onto this right now. That's my main question. Because it's pretty easy to just Iron Head here. Armor Cannon into here. Alright, I'm gonna go for it. Hatterene switches probably into Tusk. Sorry, not Tusk. Hands. Oh, no, they did bring out Tusk. Okay, I'll take that. Cool. Free Iron Head to break a Sash. And Armarouge gets Armor Cannon. I thought about reversing Trick Room, but the thing is, I could potentially just reverse Trick Room next turn. But, okay, we do just KO. Screamtail, nice. TREADS has been really nice, though, right? Like, we're slowly just distributing damage across the board. 90% on a Hatterene, like a 25% onto the Tusk. And then, like, with Gyarados, and now with the Screamtail eliminated, Earthquake is looking really powerful, right? Yeah, so Hands comes out. No Terra from their end. Gyarados switching in here is pretty free. Hatterene's their last one. I think I'm pretty content just clicking Earthquake here and then pivoting out into Gyarados. I think the one thing to consider is that they could read into this, Headlong Rush into me, Wild Charge, but it's fine. Like, even if Earthquake doesn't KO Iron Hands, that's totally okay. And if they don't get this turn correctly, then the next turn I can just Earthquake plus Waterfall into the hand slot. I think we should be super well positioned at this point. But I did think about the fact of just like giving up Armarouge for free. That being said, Armarouge is actually pretty good into my opponent's comp as well. But yeah, I think Gyarados plus TREADS is very well positioned right now, especially with this Intimidate. Okay, they don't go for Fake Out. We get Earthquake off. I'm not sure this KOs Iron Hands, unfortunately. Yeah, it does survive, as I thought. But if they Wild Charge, they end up taking a lot of recoil. Headlong Rush goes into Gyarados. Perfect. And they do correctly read into that. But I'm willing to take that trade because I just got an Intimidate off against you, right? And I have my Terra conserved as well. And I still have a Mungus with Spore as well. So I think the only thing we lose to at this point is a critical hit. Because what's really safe right now is to bring out a Mungus and just Spore into the Grey Tusk slot, Iron Head into the Hatterene slot. And the Intimidate there was just to make sure that, you know, they, even if they Headlong Rush into the Tread slot, I'd be okay. So that's the main thing I was trying to cover for. But yeah. Now that we've intimidated you, I'm happy to just Iron Head into Hatterene and click Spore into Tusk. And one thing we can consider is just Grass Terra as well in the end game to avoid getting KO'd by Tusk. So Hatterene protects, that's kind of the obvious play. But I'm still going to Iron Head to cover for that slot so it doesn't get a free Psychic off. And yeah, what it boils down to is can they get a crit right now? Even if they get a crit, honestly, like, yeah, I don't even think a crit EQ KOs a Mungus from this range. So even if you were to crit the TREADS, it's honestly fine. And they don't crit. Nice. Actually, I do wonder, though, because like Earthquake did a lot there. Headlong Rush onto that slot may have just KO'd me last turn. So I'm actually not sure I love how I played the Gyarados turn, because I was expecting to just survive Headlong Rush, but yeah, Earthquake did way more than I anticipated there, meaning I think Headlong Rush actually would have gotten the knockout there. So I actually think the turn with Gyarados was kind of poorly played ultimately, given, like, I thought I would survive Headlong Rush, but it was Life Orb that really throws things off. Anyway, now it's fine to just click, actually, what's the best thing to do here? Mungus in the back with Citrus Berry. I think Earthquake plus, Pollen Puff probably actually just gets the knockout here. But yeah, I am actually not... I don't love the turn I played with Gyarados. Because the thing is that Gyarados realistically would have won the endgame against both the TREADS as well as... Or sorry, the Tusk as well as the Hands. And I think Gyarados plus Amoonguss was impossible for my opponent to break through. So I actually think it was better to stay in with Armarouge there, and maybe even just Earthquake myself there, give up both Pokemon to get the free switch into Gyarados plus the Amoonguss, because then with Gyarados, I can just Waterfall safely into, or Flying Terra, Terra Blast into the hand slot, and then Spore into the Tusk slot. I guess then they could have switched out Tusk into Hatterene and then gone from there, but... Yeah, I still don't think I actually played that perfectly. And that one turn, if they ended up Headlong Rushing into the TREADS, get that KO, Wild Charge to KO me, that's a double knockout. I bring out Amoonguss plus Armarouge. I think we probably still end up winning realistically because I can just Grass Terror the Armarouge and I should survive, but things get a little bit dicier, so yeah. But either way, TREADS put in so much work for us in that one, and it was interesting to see like Grass Terror Scream Tail as a Trick Room user as well. Okay, we've got Glamora, Rory Moon, Dondozo, Gastrodon, Talonflame, and Tatsugiri. Interesting. TREADS is valuable for speed control. Gyarados is valuable for Intimidate. Specs Hydreigon with Draco is good for Dondozo. Amoonguss can Spore, but I have to worry about Grass Terra taunts as well. I think Hydreigon's really important here. How good is Iron Treads here? Doesn't do that much damage, but I don't know. Rock Tomb, Speed Control, and Talonflame is interesting. Man, like one thing I could do is actually lead Hands plus... I just feel so Gastrodon weak right now. But how do I even beat Gastrodon? I have to bring Armarouge because of Energy Ball. This is actually probably a Trick Room matchup, isn't it? Now that I think about it. It totally is. Okay, I'm going to go Hands plus Armarouge, Amoonguss, and Hydreigon. It's really hard to leave Gyarados on the bench here, but basically in my head, Gastrodon's one of the biggest Pokemon to worry about. If I lose Armarouge early and I end up having Hands plus... You know, I don't have the Hydreigon. I can't beat Gastrodon at all. It's like a Pokemon that can solo through the team, which is deeply concerning. Glamora, Talonflame. Okay. I think the main thing I'm worried about here is a Ghost Terra turn 1 into Taunt onto Armarouge. That'd be a pretty strong play from them, no? It would force them to Terra immediately, but... It could be like Brave Bird Earth Power here as well. I have Amoonguss. I can also soak up Toxic Spikes here, so I'm actually down to fake out Glamora and Trick Room. Actually, I'm down to just fake out Psychic here. Yeah, because, like, I think Ghost Terra Taunt is the play that makes the most sense from their end. I don't know if they even have that, but... Oh, and it's being Glamora. Okay. Good play. But that's fine. I think the main thing is, like, it could be Covert Cloak on Talonflame, or it could have Taunt, and so I want to respect both of those. Huh. Fake out Trick Room would have worked here, though. If you're going for Protect like that, it actually makes me think they just don't have, Taunt. Protect, Tailwind, Flare Blitz, Will-O-Wisp. Sorry, Protect, Brave Bird, Tailwind, Will-O-Wisp is the moveset then that I think makes a lot of sense. Now what? I want to switch Armarouge out into Amoonguss, I think. Wild Charge Talon, and then switch into Amoonguss. Because I think right now, if you're my opponent, you really have to be worried about Trick Room. I do leave myself open to like a Will-O-Wisp onto Hands, as well as an Earth Power on that slot, but I think it's okay. Being able to soak up those Toxic Spikes is really nice here. They should end up Brave Birding into Hands, okay. I think we should survive an Earth Power. I'm not sure, actually. Okay, nice. Yeah, that wasn't even close. I was thinking, yeah, if you're my opponent, you probably have to respect Trick Room a little bit more there, but this is honestly fine. Like, the trade at the end of the day has been more in my favor, right? Like, I've gotten rid of Talonflame. I've already gotten their Terra out. They don't have Toxic Spikes out on the field right now. All which are good things for me. Might want to consider conserving Hands, though, because if I can get Trick Room up, then I can Pollen Puff and heal all the way back up, which is fairly valuable, but just some food for thought. The other thing is, like, with Armarouge there, like, if I had gone for Terra, it's actually kind of dangerous, because then they could Brave Bird onto that slot. Dozo having Substitute here feels very likely, but I guess we'll have to find out and see. I think hands into Hydreigon here is really safe generally. And I am down to Click Spore on a Dondozo, trying to scout out for what it has. Like, one thing I have to consider is how I'm actually going to beat Dondozo, but I think Grass Terra Energy Ball is one appropriate response. Dozo switches. Not what I expected. Okay, I'll take that. Yeah, beautiful turn. This might be Sleep Talk Tatsugiri, though. That's, like, one thing I do think I need to respect right now. So risky to Sleep Talk here, though. I think Glimmora should just honestly switch out right now. I'm down to Draco Meteor that slot and Spore that slot. Oh, they actually just end up forfeiting. Yeah, I mean, I honestly feel like I played this game super well. The main thing was baiting out an early Terra, and then they just never could get Dondozo and Tatsugiri going. They didn't even bring Gastrodon, but with me having Energy Ball and Armor Rouge as well as Hydreigon, I felt like our Gastrodon matchup was very, very good there. So, yeah. I think the main thing was just like putting on early pressure with Trick Room, getting out an early Terra, trading very positively, and then positioning Amoonguss into a really good spot. Amoonguss in particular is really nice in this matchup because like the opposing team, like, you know, Glimmora, Dondozo has been very strong in recent weeks in Series 2, and so having Amoonguss to soak up Toxic Spikes means that I can safely target Glimmora a little bit easier. Things ended up even better because they protected Talonflame on turn 1, but yeah, generally I feel like there weren't too many plays I would have changed throughout the course of that battle, which is, you know, always kind of nice to see in reflection. Trying to think where I maybe could have improved my play. See, turn 1 was fine. I think, yeah, like the double up onto hands, given that was the worst case scenario and we still survived, it just put us in really good shape, honestly. I think the main thing to consider is if there was any comeback potential with Tatsugiri being put to sleep and Glimmora at 50%, but I think Specs Hydreigon was already really well positioned, and then it's like, yeah, my opponent was just in a really tough spot. If they had Sleep Talk on Tatsugiri, though, I was thinking like they could Sleep Talk, try to hope for hitting the Dragon type attack into Hydreigon. That probably is like the scariest outcome for me. But even if that were the case, I think I had enough firepower to win with the Amoonguss, hands, plus Armor Rouge. Especially with Grass Terra Armor Rouge, that does really well into Dondozo at that point, because I can just Grass Terra Energy Ball and heal back up with Amoonguss, and like they can't Grass Terra Dozo to get around Spore either. So, yeah. That game actually got us into the top 100, which is pretty cool. Definitely have been trying out a bunch of different teams throughout this month as we wrap up Series 2. We are obviously nearing the end of it, but I really did enjoy this format a lot, so I appreciate you all for coming out and watching the videos. I think, you know, we'll be switching to Regulation C pretty soon with the Rune Pokemon, so things are going to look fairly different, but yeah, I've honestly had a lot of fun playing through it throughout March, and let's see what we're up against. Would love to have one more banger game with TREADS if I could. Okay, this is the Dondozo Tatsugiri team, the Mousehole Glimmora team, I guess I should say, that I fought against and got wrecked by, and I had featured it on the channel as well. So if you want to check it out, I'll link the video down in the description below. This is the exact Ranto, I believe. The Pokemon are in the same order. So, yeah. We know we are up against some pretty scary things like Steel Terra Dozo, which means I can't clear Smog them as easily with Amoonguss. Steel Terra in general is pretty scary because it also means like Draco is a little bit less effective. But the Dondozo is actually walled by Gyarados. I do think I need Amoonguss in the matchup because I need to soak up the Toxic Spikes. I want to respect Glimmora potentially, but TREADS is really good. I'm thinking just kind of going offensively with like TREADS plus Hydreigon, honestly, and just like bursting with damage immediately. I'm like debating if I should actually be bringing Armor Rouge, because with Grass Terra, we actually wall Dozo decently well. Feels weird to not bring Gyarados in this matchup, right? But I don't know, like Dragon Dance doesn't actually do anything against Unaware. I'm actually bringing Iron Hands. I know that seems kind of wild because like Amoonguss is good in soaking up the Toxic Spikes, but it's Lumberry Rest and Steel Terra Dozo on the opposing side. So like Amoonguss has way less value in Spore and with the Clear Smog as well. Like I just straight up can't Clear Smog Dozo if they Steel Terra. And hands, like, I can hit with super effective damage on Dozo if they don't Terra with Wild Charge, and if they steal Terra, I can't hit it. I can still hit it with super effective damage. Okay, Golden Go plus the Glamora. That's fine by me. It should probably be a Golden Go Protect turn 1, Glamora Grass Terra here. Ah, man. But I guess if I actually had a Mungus, then turn 1 would have been amazing for me coming out of this position. I could also, like, actually prevent poison from going up. I went for Snarl Earthquake. I don't think that's the right play. Oh, it is the right play. They didn't protect Golden Go. Okay. Or Terra Glamora. Wait, what? I'm deeply confused. I mean, there's no way they can win the game after this, right? If I don't miss Snarl. I guess, I wonder if they were just, like, making a really hard read there. That's one of the things that makes this matchup interesting, by the way. If you Terra the Glamora immediately, like, then you can't Terra with Dondozo. Do they even have Dondozo in the back? There's Tatsugiri. Yeah, it is Dondozo. I said that, like, the game should just be over, but honestly, actually, that's not the case at all right now. With the rest set on the Dondozo. But you know what's cool? I can use Bulldoze for speed control onto Dozo here. Yeah, so like we can Bulldoze, drop Dondozo's speed. I think I want to switch out here. Because like the Dondozo actually is walled by Hydreigon decently well. Maybe they click Earthquake though, but I don't know. I'd rather give up Armarouge, I think, right? Yeah, with both are Grass Terra, so both are pretty good against this Dozo set. I'll go on Armarouge. I think it's interesting. If I had Gyarados here, I would have been able to bring it in. But basically, my logic in not bringing Gyarados is, yeah, Gyarados walls Dondozo, but what am I doing against Dondozo with Gyarados? It's not like I can Dragon Dance up in front of it because I was unaware. It is a little weird to Bulldoze my own Armarouge here, but the logic is to just make sure I can start outpacing Dozo later on. And they just Wave Crash. Yep, that's fine. Okay. Works for me. Free switching back into Hydreigon now. And Choice Specs Draco Meteor is one of the best answers you can actually have against Dondozo, because Dondozo essentially can't, like with Unaware, we can essentially leverage that to our advantage. So, you're going to go for Choice Specs Draco here. I think the main thing to consider is with Armarouge, do I want to Terra? I think I'd rather Terra with Hands, given that I already took a fair amount of damage here. I'm going to Draco. They kind of have to click Rest here, right? Actually, I think Draco Meteor, Terra, Armor Cannon here covers for all options. I guess they could just protect with Dondozo this turn. I actually think Trickery may have been the right play there. I don't think I've been playing super well past turn 1, but yeah, they're going to steal Terra, so I think Draco plus Armor Cannon should get this KO. And if we get the KO onto Dozo, the game should just be over effectively. But I don't know, I think like Trick Rooming could be a little bit more interesting. Because then like Hands plus Armarouge both have ways to hit the Dondozo for super effective damage. But the general expectation here is the Terra, we resist Wave Crash, we resist Earthquake. Draco plus Armor Cannon, I would think gets the KO, but let's find out. Okay, we don't miss Draco. Nice. That's a crit, right? Oh, yeah. Okay, well. that probably effectively seals up the game. They could have clicked rest here, but no, it's actually Wave Crash. Okay, onto Hydreigon. Yeah, I don't think the crit mattered then, because they would have taken so much recoil that the Armor Cannon definitely was finishing it off. This is actually fairly specially defensive in Dondozo, but since I clicked Armor Cannon there, I feel like I covered for all options anyway. And now it's a 3v1 against with Tatsugiri on their side. So Armor Cannon won't do much there, but that's fine. Iron Hands just finishes it off with a Wild Charge at this point. Okay. So I'm just going to click Draco Meteor here and Trick Room. Shouldn't be able to knock out both Pokemon. I have to click Icy Wind, but it's just Dragon Pulse instead. So we get Trick Room up, and then Hands comes out and just clicks Wild Charge. Yeah, I think the main thing that was wild in this game was turn 1. I did not expect to just get a double knockout with Snarl plus Earthquake, because the Golden Go is Nasty Plot with leftovers and Make It Rain. So maybe they were just making a really aggressive read, right? But basically, my logic was with Earthquake and Snarl, even if they just end up protecting with Golden Goal on turn 1, next turn they're left basically really exposed. And Toxic Spikes going up isn't like the end of the world in this matchup for us, even with me not bringing out Amoonguss. But the lack of Terror just made things a lot easier for us. So, Trick Room. Just Fake Out plus Energy Ball into Wild Charge. And that'll be game. So, yeah. I think that turn 1, though, highlights how quickly you can put on pressure, though, with TREADS plus Hydreigon, right? Like, we essentially just got a double knockout immediately to start off the battle and lost basically nothing. And so even though TREADS, like, attack isn't necessarily the highest, when combined with Specs Hydreigon or Gyarados, like, you can combo those two in particular very, very quickly against teams. So, yeah, but let's play one last match here. Okay, what do we got? Vaporeon. Very interesting. Lilligant, Torkoal, Fluttermane, Dragonite, Hand. So 4 of the 6 of the Lilligant Torkoal team won regionals and is one of the most popular teams in the meta right now. Otherwise, Hands and Vaporeon. Vaporeon's normally kind of a anti-like Dondozo Pokemon. It's kind of annoying, just in general. Gyarados is easily my best answer into Lilligant Torkoal thanks to Lumberry. Hydreigon resists the Torkoal's attacks. And the Grass Terra Armor Rouge is also really good. I probably want to definitely go with Gyarados and... I definitely want to go with Gyarados and Armor Rouge. TREADS I have to be very careful about with the Lilligant Torkoal combo, but it's very good in the late game with Iron Head onto Fluttermane as well as EQ. And then it's between Hands and Hydreigon. Hydreigon's a little bit riskier here, right? I think it probably should be Hands, but the damage from this is really important. I don't know. I think I'm going to go with Gyarados plus Armor Rouge as the lead, and then Hands plus TREADS in the back. But we'll see how this plays out. I think I could have very easily led Iron Hands Armor Rouge as well, and actually pressure with Trick Room with that combination. That would have been interesting. I could have led the TREADS here if I expected Fluttermane to come out as a lead for my opponent. What else? Flutter and Hands, okay. It's not a great lead for me, right? I think the best play here is probably Protect, switch Armor Rouge out. Do I need to Protect here? Like, are they actually going to Wild Charge? I feel like they should Fake Out, right? And I'm not going to lie, I'm actually a little bit tempted to play aggressively here and Dragon Dance while just going for Psychic on turn 1. This is pretty risky, but nice. Yeah, I have Covert Cloak on Armor Rouge. That was kind of the logic here. Oh, but they're Trick Rooming with Fluttermane, aren't they? Interesting. Okay. I guess it could have played out a little bit better, but all things considered, I'll still take the turn. Huh. Now the game's really interesting. Because I want to, like, Protect here, Grass Terra defensively to not faint from a Shadow Ball and reverse Trick Room. What else do I have at my disposal? Could protect, switch in hands, fake out waterfall the next turn. That also works. I actually don't think that's too bad of a play. And that would mean I don't have to commit my Terra immediately. Okay, I'm kind of down for that. Yeah, I guess I should have anticipated Trick Room a little bit more from Flutter. Choice Specs Flutter is somewhat common on compositions like that, but it makes a lot of sense on my opponent's team. No Terra from their end, that's fine. They end up Wild Charging into hands, but that's fine. Yeah, like Wild Charge plus Shadow Ball makes sense. It could be Moonblast as well, actually. But it is Shadow Ball. That's fine, though. Yeah, that basically barely dents us. Fake out Waterfall, double up onto hands is pretty safe right now. Pretty down for that, I think. Hand should switch out into maybe Torkoal. What is that? Tatsugiri? Sorry, Vaporeon. I was like, they don't have a Tatsugiri. Nice switch. Very nice play. However, right now my hands is actually in a very good position, so it's not the end of the world. 2 turns of Trick Room. Protect is pretty obvious here. I think I actually just go for the Waterfall. And I want to Wild Charge you so that you're in KO range the next turn. Oh, okay. That's probably Iron Hands coming back out to try to take an electric type attack. Yup. Iron Ball Flutter Mane. Whoa. That has to be Iron Ball, right? Like, it outpaced me under Trick Room. How in the world else would that happen? Can you do that if you're min speed? That's fascinating. Okay, my Vaporeon answers are diminishing quickly. They know I have Covert Cloak on Armourouge as well, but I don't have Protect on Treads. Energy Ball Grass Terra is my best answer in a Vaporeon here. So we'll bring out Armourouge. Then bring Torkoal out. That's fine, right? They still haven't Terra'd. Protect. How do they beat Protect Grass Terra? They might Drain Punch Earth Power the Armourouge slot right now, which would be fine, right? Protect. They could close combat Armourouge. That's my main fear. Grass Terra. Psychic. That works, I guess, right? What's Torkoal gonna do here? I think this is okay. Treads in the endgame is also pretty nice with Earthquake. But I think we should wall Torkoal decently right now. Okay. Yeah, they just Earth Power. That's fine. Nice. Big Psychic here. Nice. That's really good damage. Energy Ball into Vaporeon's really safe. TR expires. Waterfall into Torkoal. Energy Ball into Vaporeon. I think we just like surprise them with Energy Ball now, right? Because they're probably not expecting it. They still haven't Terra'd yet, though, which is my main concern. I think this is the turn to Terra, in my opinion. Okay, Torkoal's pivots. If Vaporeon doesn't Terra and Energy Ball just KOs, I think that's game over because of Covert Cloak. We just avoid your Fake Out the next turn Psychic to KO. Alright, no protect. Nice. Should be a KO onto Vaporeon then. Nice. Grass Terra Energy Ball. This is one of the cool things about team building though, right? Like Energy Ball isn't that common on Armarouge, but in this team it's really, really nice because like Gyarados is such a pivotal Pokemon, but having the Energy Ball just gives you a better matchup into these bulky water types that otherwise would wall Gyarados, like Gastrodon as well as in this case Vaporeon. So, yep. Torkoal comes back out, but we've got TREADS in the back, 3 turns of Sunlight. I think it's totally safe to just protect here. Psychic to guarantee the knockout onto this. Is there any Terra hands would use that Psychic wouldn't get the knockout against? Fire Terra, Grass Terra. I actually think Armor Cannon is our best bet here since the sun is up. I guess if it were Fire Terra, maybe it can survive with AB. They do correctly Terra hands, but it's fighting. Yeah, it's game over, I think. I haven't really seen fighting hands too much. Because it's like defensive Terras are so good on it, Grass and Fire primarily, but now with TREADS in the back, I don't think Torkoal can 3v1. Okay. And goodbye hands. Yeah, I thought the main thing that was really interesting in this matchup was the Flutter Mane, I'd say. Being super, super slow. But honestly, Armarouge kind of just walled their team for the most part. I think the main thing was, yeah, like pivoting out Armarouge earlier in, getting in that Iron Hand so that I could fake out later. And then like Gyarados, that one turn they doubled up and I survived was the pivotal turn, actually. I didn't really even talk about that turn as much, but the fact that like, yeah, they didn't end up targeting Gyarados and Gyarados just stayed on the field this entire time was obviously huge for me. So yeah. What a fun set of games here. This team is really interesting, right? Like, it has a bunch of different Pokemon and sets that I'd say aren't, like, super common, including this Grass Terra, Covert Cloak Armarouge, as well as the Iron TREADS. And, yeah, I think the TREADS put in, obviously, a lot of work in some of the games. And in this one, it would have actually been the perfect Pokemon to clean up the game with Earthquake. Earthquake just matched up really well into my opponent's composition in general. But I have to say, going into the battle, I did not think that it was going to be a Trick Room angle from their end, and it's not something I'd even considered. But then the Flutter Mane obviously ended up having it, which was super, super interesting, and being super slow as well. So, yeah. Anyway, that game actually gets us to rank 54, which I think is pretty cool. We went on a very nice win streak throughout the course of this episode. And yeah, I think it's really fun to be able to feature a high-level team with Iron TREADS, right? I think it operates in kind of a unique way where maybe it's not picking up one-hit knockouts, but it distributes really good damage across the board, has good speed control thanks to Bulldoze as well as Rock Tomb, and Iron Head was really valuable into things like Hatterene for us throughout the course of this episode. So yeah, thanks to Matt for the team. Thanks to you all as always for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Would really appreciate it, and I'll see you all next time. All right. Peace.